Imagine a village so closely tied to the land that its very existence is woven into the fabric of the earth itself. A place where the spirits of the forest, river, and ancestors walk among the people. But what happens when that balance is threatened? What if the village is bound by an ancient pact that no one can break, a pact with the land itself, where breaking it means vanishing without a trace? This is the story of Ndemu, a village with a secret that stretches back generations. Deep in the heart of Africa, tucked away between thick, towering trees and winding rivers, lies the village of Ndemu. Its vibrant green landscape is alive with the whispers of ancient spirits, and the people live in a harmony that seems almost unreal. Life here flows as steadily as the river that nourishes the land, and it's said that time itself slows down in Ndemu, holding on to its roots and traditions like an old friend who refuses to let go. In Ndemu, every person knows their role. The village bustles with life from dawn until dusk. Women gather by the river, weaving baskets and tending to the crops, while men venture into the forest to hunt or gather wood. Children run through the streets, their laughter mingling with the songs of the birds overhead. In the market, traders from near and far share their goods. Bright fabrics, pottery, and spices fill the air with rich scents. Each day is filled with purpose, and the village thrives under the steady rhythm of tradition. Yet, the heart of Ndemu beats not just with the blood of its people, but with the pulse of the land. The villagers have a deep, almost sacred connection to the spirits that protect them. They believe that every tree, every river, every stone has a spirit that must be respected. It is this respect that has kept Ndemu safe for centuries. At the center of this spiritual world stands Elder Bonu, the village's most revered figure. With his long, braided hair and deeply lined face, he is the living embodiment of the village's wisdom. He is not just an elder in years, but in knowledge, holding secrets of the past that even the youngest villagers listen to in awe. Elder Bonu is the one who speaks to the spirits, or so it's said, and his dreams are filled with messages from the ancestors. His advice is sought in matters of great importance, and his presence alone seems to quiet the winds. But while the villagers respect the land and the spirits, they also rely on a more earthly leader, Chief Oba Ikena. His strength and leadership have seen Ndemu through both good times and bad. With a voice as strong as thunder and a heart that leads with fairness, Chief Ikena has guided the village with unwavering steadiness. His wisdom, though different from Elder Bonu's spiritual guidance, is no less important. The villagers trust him as the protector of Ndemu's future, ensuring that both the spirits and the people remain in harmony. However, there is one thing that binds the village in a way that no leader can control. The very land they live on, the forest they protect, and the rivers they depend on, all are linked to a pact made long ago, a promise made between the first ancestors of Ndemu and the spirits of the forest. It is said that in return for the land's abundance, the villagers must honor the spirits' wishes and maintain their connection to the natural world. Break that bond, and the village will face consequences, dire, irreversible consequences. For generations, the elders have warned the villagers of the pact's importance. There are stories passed down around the fire of times when the village nearly faced disaster, when the spirits grew angry and threatened to withdraw their blessings. The villagers survived each trial, but only because they remembered the pact and honored the spirits' demands. These stories are told with reverence, for they are reminders of what can happen if the balance is disturbed. But now, a quiet change is happening. The winds are shifting, and the peace that has long graced Ndemu feels fragile. There are whispers of the spirits growing restless, of things stirring in the forest that shouldn't be. No one speaks too openly about it, but the elders know that something is coming. Something that will test the village in ways it has never been tested before. Outsiders, too, have begun to take notice. Traders from faraway lands have arrived in the village, curious about the rumors of Ndemu's harmony with nature, seeking knowledge and profit from the village's ancient ways. Some come looking for wisdom, others come to exploit it. But no matter their intentions, they cannot deny that there is something special about Ndemu. A power that lingers in the air, something ancient and unseen. And for those who are brave enough to venture into the depths of the forest, there are whispers of sacred relics hidden away, relics said to hold the power to change the course of history. Yet, for all their curiosity, the outsiders do not understand the true cost of the land's power. They do not understand the pact that binds the village to the spirits, a pact that is not to be broken. As Elder Bonu often says, the land gives, but it also takes. And when the spirits are angry, there is no escape from their judgment. The villagers of Ndemu continue their daily lives, unaware of the storm that is quietly gathering on the horizon. The harmony they have enjoyed for so long is about to be shattered, and no one knows what the cost will be when the spirits come to claim what is theirs. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a soft glow over the village of Ndemu, the night began to settle in, bringing with it the sounds of the evening. The villagers, as they had for centuries, prepared for the rituals that marked the transition from day to night. The air was filled with the rhythm of drums and the joyous laughter of people gathering by the fire. This was their time, the time when the village would come together in harmony, honoring the spirits and sharing stories of the day's events. Yet, on this particular evening, there was something different, something that even the most attuned villagers could not ignore. A chill, a strange, unexpected cold, settled over the land. It was as though the warmth of the day had been sucked away by an unseen force. The villagers, though they tried to shake off the discomfort, felt it lingering. The drums grew louder, their beat more frantic, as if echoing the unease that had crept into the hearts of those gathered around the fire. To the villagers, it was nothing more than the spirits calling to them, urging them to honor an ancient tradition. The sounds of the forest, the rustling of leaves, the whispers that fluttered in the wind, and the distant chant of voices from deep within the trees were not unfamiliar. They had heard them many times before, during moments of change or ritual, signaling a connection between the people and the land. But tonight, it felt different. As the night stretched on, the strange sounds from the forest seemed to grow louder, more insistent. The wind howled through the trees, and the distant drum beats that had once been a part of the village's rhythm now carried an eerie undertone. It was as though the forest was alive, restless, unsettled, calling for something that no one could understand. At first, the villagers dismissed it. They whispered among themselves that it was simply the spirits, celebrating with them, or perhaps summoning them for an ancient, forgotten ceremony. But despite their efforts to reassure each other, a sense of unease began to spread. There was something in the air, something unseen, that made their hearts race and their skin prickle with an unknown fear. As the evening wore on, the children became the first to notice something was amiss. They ran to their parents, wide-eyed and trembling, speaking of shadowy figures moving just beyond the tree line. Figures that flickered in and out of view, just on the edge of their sight, too quick to catch but too real to ignore. Some children said they saw the figures darting through the trees, their forms tall and dark, like fleeting specters of something ancient and malevolent. At first, the adults brushed it off as mere imaginations, the kind of stories children tell when the night grows long. But soon, the animals of the village began to act strangely. The dogs barked relentlessly, running in circles and cowering in fear, while the goats bleated in panic, refusing to go near the trees. Even the birds in the forest had fallen silent, their usual chirps replaced by an ominous stillness. The tension in the air grew thicker, and the villagers began to notice the sky itself, darkening, though the moon was full, casting an unnatural shadow over the village. The wind picked up, violently tossing the branches of the trees and carrying with it the scent of the earth, damp and heavy. The peaceful night had turned into something far more sinister. It wasn't long before the storm broke. The winds howled louder, and rain began to pour, heavy and relentless. The villagers gathered close around their fires, seeking shelter from the fierce gusts that rattled their homes and the constant lash of rain that seemed to fall from every direction. The storm was unlike any they had ever witnessed before. It was as if the heavens themselves were angry, demanding something from the earth below. Yet even amidst the chaos, something else began to happen. A thick, swirling mist, dark and heavy, began to roll through the village. It was as though the land itself had exhaled, releasing the fog into the air, shrouding everything in a veil of white. The mist crept over the houses, blanketing the village in an eerie silence. It moved like a living thing, curling around the trees, slipping through cracks in the huts, and sweeping through the market. The village was swallowed whole, as if it had been taken by the very forest it had always lived in harmony with. The storm raged through the night, the sound of the drums now swallowed by the wind, the whispers lost in the howling gale. It was a night that would be remembered for centuries, though no one could say why, because by morning, the village of Ndemu was gone. When the first rays of dawn broke through the dark clouds, there was no sign of life. The village was silent. The familiar sounds of the river and the birds in the trees were absent. No laughter, no chatter, no voices calling to one another, all was still. The huts, the markets, the fields, everything was exactly where it had been, but there were no people. No villagers remained. As the morning light stretched across the empty village, the ground seemed untouched, as though nothing had ever occurred. The fires, still warm, had burned down to glowing embers. A half-eaten meal sat on a table, untouched. A basket lay abandoned in the dirt, its contents spilling out. It was as if the people of Ndemu had simply vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the faintest trace of their existence. But there was one thing that was unmistakable: the air was heavy with the same unease that had gripped the village the night before. The spirits were not gone. The land, too, seemed restless, its pulse faint but present. Something had changed, something that had shifted the very balance of Ndemu, and the villagers were no longer a part of it. Where did they go? What caused them to vanish so suddenly, leaving everything behind, yet not a single soul in sight? The answers to these questions lie hidden in the depth of the forest, where the spirits still whisper and the land holds its secrets tight. The morning after the village of Ndemu vanished, the world beyond the river began to stir. Villages far and wide that bordered the ancient forest had whispers of the strange happenings in Ndemu. What was once a thriving community had been swallowed by an eerie silence, leaving behind only an empty shell of a village. The fields, the huts, the market stalls, and even the fires, all were still, yet no one remained. The questions lingered in the air, unanswered and haunting. As the first rays of dawn bathed the land in soft light, the neighboring villagers began to arrive at Ndemu. They had heard the stories, the rumors, but seeing the emptiness with their own eyes was something entirely different. What had happened to the people of Ndemu? Where had they gone? The visitors stepped cautiously through the abandoned village, searching for any sign of what could have transpired. They found no traces of struggle, no blood, no broken doors, no signs of forced entry. The baskets, the half-eaten meals, and the belongings were untouched, as though the villagers had simply disappeared without a trace. The whole village lay in eerie stillness, as if it had been frozen in time. It was as if the people had just vanished into thin air, leaving no clue behind. At first, the neighboring villagers assumed it was a simple case of the village being abandoned, perhaps a migration or a mass exodus. But as they searched further, unease settled in. There was no logical explanation for the sudden disappearance of an entire community. And as the day passed, the most chilling rumor of all began to spread like wildfire: Ndemu had been cursed. Some villagers claimed that the spirits of the forest had taken the villagers as punishment. A local elder, who had lived in the neighboring village for decades, spoke in hushed tones, recalling the ancient stories told by his own father. It was said that if the pact with the forest spirits was ever broken, the village would be wiped from existence, as if the land itself would claim what was once its own. This theory seemed to resonate deeply with those who were closest to the natural world. It was whispered that the villagers had angered the spirits by disturbing a sacred burial ground deep within the forest. Those who had ventured into the sacred grove were said to have ignored warnings from the elders, unknowingly unleashing the wrath of the spirits. And in return, the spirits had taken what was theirs, the village itself. But there were other theories, ones less supernatural in nature, but no less disturbing. One theory that spread among the more skeptical villagers was that the village had been attacked by a rival tribe. These tribes had long contested over the resources of the fertile land near the river, and some believed that the disappearance of Ndemu could be the result of a brutal raid. Perhaps, the rival tribe had taken advantage of the storm to invade the village, overrun it, and take control of the land. But, if this was true, where were the bodies? Why were there no signs of battle, no weapons left behind, and no trace of the invaders? The theory fell apart as quickly as it had formed. And then, there was the most unsettling theory of all: the forest itself had swallowed the village. This theory was whispered in the shadows, by those who still believed in the ancient, mystical power of the land. Some elders suggested that the forest was not just a collection of trees and wildlife, but an ancient, sentient being, a force of nature that could decide who lived and who perished. The idea was that the forest had taken the village to restore balance, perhaps as punishment for disturbing the sacred land, or perhaps as a natural consequence of some forgotten act that the villagers had never even realized had violated the land's integrity. The mist that had descended upon the village the night before was seen as a sign that the forest had enacted its power, consuming Ndemu in an effort to maintain the delicate balance between man and nature. Eyewitness accounts also muddied the waters. A few villagers from the neighboring settlements claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving through the mist, but they were not certain of what they had seen. The figures were veiled in the dense fog, their features hidden, their movements erratic. Some believed these figures to be the lost villagers, now wandering aimlessly, having fled in fear or confusion. Others, however, were certain that these figures were not human at all, but spirits or something far worse, driven by forces beyond comprehension. As the day turned to night, the villagers from neighboring areas gathered around the fires, recounting their own stories. Some believed the villagers had fled in terror, seeking refuge in the forest. Yet the more they discussed, the more the unsettling feeling grew. Was it possible that the spirits had taken them? Or was there a darker force at work, something they had yet to fully understand? And then, as if the land itself was answering their questions, an elder from a nearby village arrived. His face was etched with the weight of many years, and he spoke in a voice thick with the knowledge of the ancients. He told the gathering of an old legend, passed down from his forefathers, of a time when the spirits would claim the souls of those who had violated the sacred pact between man and nature. The mist, he said, is not just a veil. It is the spirit's way of hiding what is lost, waiting for the moment when it claims the rest. If the balance is broken, the spirits will come for all. And the mist will hide them, waiting. The elder's words hung heavy in the air, as the fire crackled and the villagers fell silent. The warning was clear: the village of Ndemu had not simply disappeared. It had been claimed by the forest, by the spirits, and perhaps, more were still to be claimed. What truly happened to Ndemu? Was it a curse, a raid, or the wrath of the forest? And why is the mist still lingering, waiting for the right moment to claim more souls? The answers lie deep in the heart of the forest, where the land still holds its secrets close, whispering its truth to those who dare listen. As the legend of Ndemu continued to haunt the neighboring villages, an outsider arrived, a curious adventurer, an explorer of mysteries, driven by a desire to uncover the truth behind the village's vanishing. This stranger was no ordinary traveler. They were a historian, a seeker of forgotten truths, armed with nothing but their determination and a mind eager to solve puzzles no one dared approach. Despite the warnings of the locals, who spoke in hushed tones and pointed towards the cursed land, the adventurer was resolute. The whispers of the village's disappearance gnawed at them, and they knew they had to go. The villagers, with their fear and superstitions, did not have the answers. But the adventurer believed the land held secrets, and they were determined to uncover them. The journey was not an easy one. The path to Ndemu twisted through dense forest, over rocky terrain, and beneath a sky that seemed to darken as the adventurer drew nearer. Along the way, strange occurrences began to plague them. The wind howled with whispers, voices carried on the breeze that sounded like nothing human. Shapes seemed to move in the corner of their vision, figures just out of reach, vanishing when they turned to look. And then came the storms, sudden, violent bursts of rain and wind that came from nowhere, soaking the adventurer and throwing them off course. But still, they pressed on, driven by the need to understand. When the adventurer finally arrived at the village's outskirts, they were met by the eerie silence that had been described by so many before them. The village, though empty, still stood as a shell of what it once was. The huts, now abandoned, stood like forgotten memories. The market was lifeless, the fields untouched. The only thing that remained was the ever-present mist, swirling faintly in the air like a spectre watching from afar. With the determination of someone who could not let go, the adventurer began to search the village. It was then that something unusual caught their eye, a series of stones half buried in the earth, hidden beneath the roots of an old tree. Digging them up carefully, they uncovered artifacts, ancient relics from a time long before the village's current inhabitants. The relics, beautiful but strange, were inscribed with symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. These were not ordinary items. The adventurer's heart quickened. It was clear, these relics were part of something far greater, something the villagers had hidden for generations. With these discoveries came the first hint of the truth. The villagers, it seemed, had not simply disappeared by accident. They had been guarding something, a treasure, a relic, a secret that was powerful enough to anger the spirits of the forest. The adventurer's heart pounded with a growing realization, Ndemu's fate might have been sealed long before the mist arrived. That night, as they sat alone in the village ruins, the adventurer was plagued by strange, vivid dreams. In these dreams, the villagers appeared, their faces obscured, their voices a cryptic murmur. They spoke in a language that seemed both ancient and unknown, their words tangled with sorrow, warning of something terrible. The adventurer strained to understand, but it was as if the message was just out of reach. The dream was a puzzle, and the pieces did not fit together. As the night deepened, the adventurer was visited by something else, shadowy figures, the spirits of the forest, appeared from the mist. Their forms were indistinct, shifting and swirling, their presence ominous. They circled the adventurer, their whispers growing louder, urging them to leave. The spirits spoke of the ancient pact, of the dire consequences that would follow if the adventurer did not heed their warnings. The adventurer, shaken but determined, stood at the edge of the village ruins, staring into the dark forest. The mist, thick and cold, began to swirl once more, and distant whispers called to them, their voices growing more insistent. It was then that the adventurer heard something even more chilling, a voice, distant but clear, calling their name from the heart of the forest. The choice was clear: the adventurer could stay and continue their search, uncovering whatever dark secrets lay hidden, or they could leave, forever a stranger to the mystery of Ndemu. But the voice seemed to say that the answers were just beyond reach, and if they did not act now, they might never leave. Would the adventurer uncover the truth behind the vanishing of Ndemu? Or would they become just another lost soul claimed by the forest secrets? The path ahead was shrouded in mist, and with each step, the mystery deepened. As the mist thickened and the shadows of the forest loomed, the adventurer ventured deeper into the heart of the ancient land. The relic they had uncovered, a sacred artifact, buried beneath layers of time, now beckoned them, its power pulsing faintly beneath the earth. It was here, in this forgotten place, that the true story of Ndemu was about to be revealed. The village had flourished for generations, living in harmony with the land, and all the while, the villagers had been guardians of a powerful relic. The relic was the village's lifeblood, its prosperity tied to the spirits of the forest who protected it. For centuries, the villagers had honored the pact, keeping the sacred object hidden, its true nature known only to a select few. But greed and desperation have a way of clouding even the clearest of hearts. In the darkness of the night, a group of villagers, driven by the lure of the relic's power, decided to steal it. They believed that by possessing the artifact, they could control the forest spirits and secure the village's future forever. It was an act of betrayal, a violation of the sacred pact, and the consequences were swift and unforgiving. The adventurer, standing now at the heart of the village ruins, reached out to touch the relic. The moment their fingers made contact, a surge of energy overwhelmed them. They were plunged into a vision, a haunting memory from the past. The spirits of the forest revealed the final moments of the villagers who had violated the pact. The adventurer saw them, desperate and frightened, being pulled into the ground, their bodies swallowed by the earth as the land itself rose up in fury. The village had been erased, wiped from existence, as the spirits claimed those who dared disturb the delicate balance. The adventurer gasped for air as the vision faded, their body trembling from the overwhelming power that had surged through them. But there was no escape from the forest's wrath. The spirits, now fully awakened, appeared before the adventurer, their forms shifting and ethereal. They spoke with voices like the rustling of leaves, warning of the dangers of greed, and the consequences of seeking knowledge not meant to be found. "Never seek what you are not meant to find," they whispered, their voices cold and final. The adventurer felt the weight of their warning, knowing that they had come dangerously close to uncovering something that should have remained buried. The adventurer barely managed to escape the village, their heart pounding, their mind filled with the echoes of the spirit's words. They fled, knowing that the price for their curiosity had been high, but it was not without its lesson. The village of Ndemu, once full of life, remained gone, its secrets hidden beneath layers of mist and mystery. The relic was once again buried, its true power concealed from those who might seek it out. The spirits, now fully awakened, continued to haunt the forest, waiting for the next trespasser to cross the boundary they had set long ago. The mystery of Ndemu remains unsolved. The village's disappearance is a legend, whispered from one village to the next, a warning to all who dare venture too close to the forest edge. It is a tale of greed, betrayal, and the unyielding power of the spirits who protect what is sacred. The ruins of the village, shrouded once more in mist. The land is silent, but the echoes of the past, the whispers of the spirits, linger in the air, reminding all who listen of the dangers of breaking ancient paths. The story of Ndemu will never fade. It will live on, a legend, a warning, a mystery that will continue to haunt the forest, waiting for the next curious soul who dares to seek the truth.